For today's video, I'm going to be talking specifically about registering for classes at McGill. I thought this would be helpful for incoming first years, just to give you all a better idea of what to expect and kind of how the registration process works. Because it can be a little bit intimidating, a little bit complicated, and very, very frustrating at times. And we've all been through it, and so me and my friends have some advice to give you. I'm going to sit over on the side just because I'm going to put stuff on the screen right here just to help out. First things first, know your registration date and know your very specific registration time. You should be able to Google it on the McGill website, on Minerva. You'll have a very specific time that you are supposed to register, and register at that exact time. Like set an alarm, set several alarms if you're on the West Coast like me. When I was registering for classes, I had an 8 a.m. registration slot, which meant for me it was 5 a.m. So I set an alarm for 4:30. I was up, I had my codes. You have to make sure that you're doing it at your exact registration minute, because even if you wait until later in the day, the classes that you want could be gone. It's very competitive. It's like a very fast moving process. Classes fill up extremely quickly. So be on time. If your registration's at 9 a.m., at like 8:59, be refreshing the page, ready with your codes to type into Minerva so you can get your classes. Next thing I want to talk about that's pretty commonly known as Visual Schedule Builder. If you don't know what it is, it's a really great tool that McGill has to kind of show you a visual example of your schedule. And it's really helpful to actually visualize your day, see how long classes are, see what kind of classes you want to be taking, where the classes are located. For me, my first year, I definitely didn't think things fully through because I had a fine schedule, but I had about 2 hours in between each class, which kind of sucks because it means that you're on campus like all day, which even though that might be how it is in high school, like you don't want to do that in college. I personally try to have my classes close together just so I can get them done. And if you're interested in getting a job like me, make sure you have like a full 8-hour block in your day for a shift. So I work at a cafe, so I try and have my classes at least a couple days a week end by noon, so I can work the entire afternoon and evening at my job. Or vice versa, have them all start at like 2-3 p.m. and work the entire morning. So make sure you're kind of structuring your schedule for how you want your days to look. If you want to stay on campus all day and like study in the library, starting the day with an 8:30 and ending the day with like a 4:30 class might be a good fit for you. I did that my first semester and I hated it, so I wouldn't personally recommend it. That being said, putting a bunch of classes directly one after the other can also be incredibly tiring. Make sure you're giving yourself a lunch break. Make sure you're giving yourself a little bit of time to study. I personally wouldn't recommend doing 3 hour-and-a-half classes in a row. That's just me. I think that's way too much. Another really good thing to remember is that when registration opens, it's opening for the entire next year. It's not just for fall semester, it's for fall and winter. And winter classes fill up almost as quickly as fall ones. So make sure you're having both your schedules for the whole year picked out and ready to go so you can register for all of them at once. Even if classes change, you change your mind about things, you shift on your schedule, it's good to have classes registered on Minerva so you have something to fall back on even if you change your mind. Also, it can be really helpful to look at your whole year at the same time and register for 2 semesters at once, because some classes might not be offered in the fall or in the winter, and there might be some that are like they go together and you want to take them in the same year, or even making sure that you're getting all the credits you need to be getting in your first year by looking at both semesters. Make sure you're allocating your classes how you want them to. I am a double major with a minor, and I like to do a nice mix, like 2 classes for each major, 1 class for my minor, something like that. I definitely recommend registering for both semesters at the same time. Next tips I have are from my friend Emily. She's in science and she gave me a couple of things that she wanted me to share for any potential like U0 science students coming into McGill. She says, don't take hard physics unless you have to. I can't speak much to that, but I would say I agree. I'm guessing that there isn't really much benefit of taking a harder physics class. So if you don't want to put too much of a strain on your schedule, just take the easier one. And for chemistry, it doesn't matter which section you registered for because you can attend either section. This is true for a lot of classes. A lot of like bigger classes that have multiple sections, they'll be the exact same. So if your schedule is like really not like lining up, you can register for a class and actually attend a different section of it. Make sure you're kind of keeping track of this because your midterms and all your exams and everything will be in the section you registered for, not the section you're attending. But if you do have a strain on your schedule, you can attend a different section for maybe some of the lectures or kind of like move around with that. There's a little bit of flexibility when there's those big multi-section first year classes. Another thing I would definitely recommend is having like an entire backup schedule. Classes go really, really fast and it can be so frustrating and so discouraging to have your whole schedule exactly how you want planned out. You get on your registration day, try and register, and half your classes are already full. It's actually really common. It can be really, really frustrating. So my biggest piece of advice is just don't get too attached to your classes, especially first year, because you're probably not going to get into all of them, and make sure that for every class you have like another one you wouldn't mind taking, you know, like another one that fills the same credit or the same time slot, and have like multiple different versions of your schedule that you'd be happy with. If one class is full, you can immediately register for the next one. You don't have to try and like figure something out while more classes are filling up. Another great tip I have is actually the McGill Enhanced web extension. So you can download this by just searching McGill Enhanced on Google, and it's like a little Chrome extension thing. I'm not totally sure the technical name for it, but essentially with McGill Enhanced, you can do one-click registration, which is what I've been doing, and it is so incredibly helpful. One-click registration means that with just like one push of a button, you can register for all of the classes on your Visual Schedule Builder page. The kicker here is you just have to make sure you have Minerva open and logged in a different browser, and then have Visual Schedule Builder on another browser, and then when your registration time hits, just click the button, one-click registration, and it will automatically register you for all of your classes. If you don't want to get McGill Enhanced, if you don't want to get the Chrome browser extension, just make sure you have all your CRMs ready to go to be copy and pasted into Minerva right when your registration opens. And then this piece of advice is like decently well known, but in college it can be a lot harder to get up for 8:30s, especially if you're living in Upper Res and you have to walk all the way down the hill. Maybe you went out the night before, because going out on weekdays is like kind of a big thing in Upper Res. 8:30s can be a little bit challenging, and so just because you did it in high school doesn't mean you have to do it or maybe want to do it in college. So if you can avoid it, try and just avoid the 8:30s. That's my best advice. Also, winter it gets dark and cold fast, so I also try and avoid like evening classes. I mean, last year I had a class from 6 to 9 p.m. all year on Tuesday nights, and so I couldn't avoid those evening classes, but pretty much I try, if possible, to start my day at like 9:30 or 10 and end it around like 4 o'clock. That's usually the range I try and fit all my classes in. That can't always be possible, but it is something I try and always shoot for. Another thing that I do quite a lot when it comes to registration, sometimes I like to take 4 classes instead of 5 and work more hours at the cafe. And so whenever I'm doing a semester that I know I'd rather take 4 classes, or maybe you want to do part-time, you know you'd rather take 3, I still always register for 5. I always pick my 5 top classes, go to all 5 during ad drop, and then I choose which one I liked the least to drop. I never register for 4 just because having 5 gives me an option. Classes can surprise you in a positive way. You might think you were going to drop something, but you actually end up really loving it. Or you might really be interested in the topic, but you get to the class and the workload is like crazy hard, or it's just not the structure of like exams you prefer, and you end up wanting to drop it. So always register for the max amount you can, and then you can always drop later. And my final piece of advice is get a seat. Now, this is a website that's really helpful. If you didn't get into a class that you really wanted to do, you can go and get a seat, and you can pay $1 and type in the course code, and it will notify you immediately when there's a free spot on the wait list or a free spot in the class, so you can go onto Minerva and register for it right away. This has helped me out a couple of times. It can be hard because if you don't get the notification in time and you go on Minerva, it can be too late, and then you kind of lost $1 and you didn't get into the class. But it has really come in clutch a couple times. For those like more popular classes, harder to get classes. So I recommend get a seat. That is all my advice. I hope this video was helpful. I know that if I had seen this when I was coming into McGill, it would have definitely been nice to know that it is very frustrating and very hard, and you don't get into most of the classes you want to, and everyone's kind of in the same boat. I know classes are online this fall, which sucks, but hopefully everyone still gets into classes they really enjoy. I know I'm excited about my semester, and good luck to all you first years registering the next couple weeks. Thanks, bye.